What's up, everybody? Jason from Jason's Exotic Reptiles. I'm at New England Reptile Distributors with Kevin McCurley. I asked you guys to submit some Q&A, and today we're going to answer them. I have user-submitted questions from Facebook. I made a post. I asked you guys to submit some questions and who you want to see answer them. So we're going to just run down the list in the order they are here. Maybe not all of them, because some of them we can't repeat. But question goes to Kevin. If hiring and retaining employees wasn't an issue, what would Kevin's dream place look like? It's a good question.
Every animal would have an employee.
All right.
Just constantly just fluffing everything up, making everything great. Yeah, because it's like you're limited to the amount of animals that you can keep well, or whatever that level is, what you call well, is always limited by the care that it can get on a day-to-day, week-to-week type thing. And besides just having the housing, how often is it going to be cleaned? How often is that water dish being changed? How often is the animal getting to come out, interact with people? Because a lot of these animals, if you don't handle them and you don't socialize them and you don't interact with them, they're just not going to constantly just stay like this trusting, easygoing animal. So there's a lot of handling. There's a lot of manipulation of animals. So I would just have more, like per animal, more and more employees. But what would
your dream place look like? If you could have a dream place, what would this look like? I mean, you kind of built
a giant
it, right?
greenhouse.
I like it.
I love like butterflies. No, I just
that would
have
be cool.
all these ridiculous landscape or bioscopes or whatever the frig you want to call it. But sadly, I don't even think like that because it's so far from the reality. Because I have this, and this is
money,
a painful reality.
All right. Well, I think that's a good answer. So the next one is a question for both of you. What would you say is your biggest challenge in running your companies? Do you want to go first?
The biggest challenge is, there's a whole bunch.
What's the biggest one? Is it employees?
Employees.
And
it's like, might sound really fun. So get to work with reptiles all day long. And then after 6 months, it's probably more of a grind. And there's you're moving animals, taking care of animals. They poop. They do this. They might bite you. Blah 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 blah. So yes, and keeping the morale up, keeping all that consistent energy.
So I guess I have employees, but I can still do everything by myself, and I kept it like that on purpose because of everything you just mentioned. Is once you grow to a certain size, you have to rely on people to do certain things. And I'd say my biggest challenge right now, currently, is scaling, which adds the employee component into it. So it's scaling without the challenge of having to rely on employees, and that's really hard to do because at some point I have to release the reins and put that trust in somebody to do something from the same perspective as me. And I fortunately have very good people, but they will never see it exactly like I see it, and I will never see it exactly like they see it.
Scales, I like Hungarian harmonic minor. I like minor scales. Mixolydian, no, that's
all
guitar
right.
talk.
Next question. So I guess this actually I think a pretty good question. What species are underrepresented in the hobby, and what keeps them that way?
Blood pythons. Blood pythons because blood, and people think they're mean, and they think that all they want to do is bite, and I think they can be amazing. And once you win one over, people just don't understand them. Like you just saw me handling animal tree boas. Yep. They're infamous for biting, and you saw snake after snake after snake. You saw me take down. Did I sit here and go, "Oh, sneaky snake," and all this stuff?
No,
I didn't ask for permission, and I went through all. You saw one that was hunting for food, and I immediately was able to take it. And the problem is like a novice handler, and their success might be terrible because they're not reading the telltale signs of that animal, and they have a bad experience. And then that bad experience gets propagated online. Or when they're talking, I had a blood python and it's crazy and blah, 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 blah. And then we just propagate this, but it's such, dude, I'll pull out a T-negative albino and show it to you. Dude, Amazing. What
Yeah.
an amazing, amazing looking animal. You can tell them your thing. I'll go grab a snake.
Yeah, so I think one that I would probably say, and it's a toss-up, because I was actually going to say potentially anything, tree pythons, tree boas. I'm going to go for Brazilian rainbow boas, or rainbow boas in general, and I think they are underrepresented for the fact that there's a lot of misinformation about them, and the huge majority of these animals, including rainbow boas, Amazon tree boas, or I should say emerald tree boas, majority of them came in wild caught, so they have a high failure rate, and they get a bad reputation for being this challenging animal to keep. When if you get a really well-established captive bred animal, I think that emerald tree boas, Brazilian rainbow boas, they can be fantastic pets, but they have this perceived notion of being extremely difficult to keep in captivity, and it comes from that wild-caught imports.
And Brazilians can be a little persnickety.
Yeah.
Because they're closely related to green anacondas.
So another question is, I do have a question. It may be beyond y'all's expertise. I wonder if Kevin knows how Western and Eastern black rat snakes can be differentiated from each other physically. And then they gave me the scientific names, which I cannot pronounce, but Kevin probably can.
So they're doing taxonomy, and they're probably doing genealogy. So taxonomy, so if they actually, with a lot of Colubrida, they will break down all the scalation. So they'll look at the head scalation, they'll look on the ventral scutes, they'll look at just everything like that. And so they'll find out that there's enough physiological differences and keynotes that I could look at the head scalation of a Western versus an Eastern, and I go, wow, this almost looks like a different species, or something like that.
Yep.
And so that's enough for them to probably interpret the taxonomy and decide that there is they're different subspecies of each other or whatever, and then we can further bolster that argument by doing genealogy and looking at the genetics and seeing how far different association they have to each other and stuff like that. So
so it doesn't sound like it's something you can visually from 10 feet away say that's a
but
Western.
I
that's
might
an
be
Eastern.
able to. There might be certain like head scalation. A lot of times it's like if I notice like there's like big postocular, preocular scales around the eyes that might have like a divide in it on one, and then other one is just a complete scale, whereas the other one is two scales and it's divided. So
you have to pick it up and look
at it.
it
Yeah, but it's basically, but we can do scale identification like on sheds and whatnot. But yeah, I'm gonna get another one.
So this is another question for Kevin. We'll skip that and come back. So we have a two-part question. Question one for Jason, question two for Kevin. I'll ask the first question one to me, because Kevin will be coming back soon. But actually, I need Kevin for this question. We gotta wait for him. Let's see. There's a lot of funny questions in here, like Jason, what happened to your hair? It fell out, and I shaved my head.
5 minutes later.
Next question, we have a two-part question. Is question one for me, question two for you. But I do think that question one can be answered by both of us. Jason, what is the best first pet, a BCI or a super dwarf retic? Now, I actually think that both of them could be fantastic first pets. If you do your research on them, the challenge is if you're going to get a super dwarf, you need to make sure it's actually a super dwarf retic, then you're not buying something that someone's labeling as a super dwarf. I do think they're a little bit more challenging, but as long as you do your research, I personally think it's like saying it's not like saying what's a better first dog, because I was going to say a Malinois versus a poodle. But I think that either can be a good first pet as long as you know what you're getting into and doing your research. I'd be curious what Kevin's answer is on this one.
I'd probably say the boa, because if you're not good at reading snake behavior, the retic.
Okay.
The retic is maybe going to be a little bit more challenging. Ultimately, once you've socialized that retics, I think, can often be better for handling when socialized, because they're more like, boas are like, got this untrusting little thing and they freak out and all that. And retics, like once they've gotten it and they figure it out, you can pretty much do almost anything with them. Whereas boas, you'll see the tail twirl up and then the head lolling and all that kind of stuff. So, initially a boa, but once you understand like the snake behaviors, like the retics love to eat and become active hunters, where maybe a boa is a little bit more ambushy and stuff like that. So I would start with the boa first, but then once you get your things in line, maybe the retic.
Yeah, and I'd say majority of people go for the boa, but super dwarf retics give you a cool element. Kevin keeps leaving on me.
2 very boring minutes later.
Do snakes like metal music?
Like it?
That's their breeding music, right, Kevin? That's what gets them going.
They're definitely subjected to it. There's a lot. If it's Lamb of God, Exodus, Testament, Slayer, Crotalis, whatever, they're subjected to it. A lot of Crowbar.
Crowbar.
But,
Well, here's a different question. Another one for Kevin here is, did he ever produce animals from his Boelen's olive python breeding project?
I bred Papuan pythons 3 times, bred Boelens 1 time.
Well, this is a question. Have you ever crossed Boelen's with
Oh, no,
olive
I actually
pythons?
had them copulate. And they're very, very closely associated.
He's ready to pull something else out.
No, I'm going to stop.
All right,
But,
another question for Kevin, though. I have some questions on cohabitation for Amazon tree boas in a large vertical palladium or vivarium.
Vivarium.
Vivarium. All right, that's an easy one.
They like to be partially terrestrial. They'll use like a hide box. They'll use little bird boxes, but they'll right on the ground. They'll come right down there. And when you start adding the water, I mean, the water thing's beautiful, but you got to make sure it's filtered, and then you have to worry about fungus and bacterial lesions and da-da-da-da.
Well, this is a two-part. Well, this is a question for both of us. Is what reptile do you want to work with, but you haven't been able to, whether it's due to being too busy or being illegal?
Well, one was I always wanted to play with Fiji Island iguanas, and I get to play and breed with a lot of Fijis now, where I'm going overseas, and they're so cute. There's just little amazing. We have Bula Bula, we have Vidiensis, and Fasciatus. And those are the 3 Fijis, and they're just glorious, and they're beautiful, and they're all captive stuff, all captive bred stuff. And they're a legal sin here in the United States, even though abroad they're being bred very well, very routinely. They're probably not difficult to breed. They seem pretty straightforward from what I'm doing, and that was a really fun time. Komodo dragons too. Get and play with Komodo dragons.
So I would say I have 3 that popped in my mind. They're kind of, so one would be water monitors. So I love water monitors. I don't have the space or the time to do it anymore. Even I could justify having the space. I don't think I physically have the time to do it. I used to keep them. I used to breed them. Kevin taught me how to breed them, and I was successful at it, and I was super happy and thankful for that. The other 2 that immediately pop into my head are shingleback skinks. I think those are super cool. So those would be one. We can't keep them here. We don't have them. It's highly illegal. And
They're illegal?
Shinglebacks.
They are?
I don't know.
No,
are they?
No, they're not illegal.
We just can't get them, right?
Yeah, they're just so hard to get. The reproductiveness is low. The parents will bond. Western blue tongues, Centralian, the multifasciata I love. The Western blue tongues are amazing. I get to play with some cool shinglebacks and stuff like that. There's all sorts of color morphs of different
Do they have them in the United States, though?
What?
Do we have shingleback in the United States?
Yeah, they're here. So we have
in the pet industry?
Yeah,
I'm gonna get me some shinglebacks.
We have Nigrolatia, so the alpine blotched. We have pink tongues. We have Skinkoides intermediata.
My third one, which Kevin may have some here, but my third one is both beaded and Gila monsters.
Yeah, I have those here.
I just think those are super cool.
Yeah.
I think the trend that I have are lizards. Lizards take too much time of me. They take more constant daily or multiple weekly cares. And where I travel a lot for work, I don't have the means to give them that constant care, which is why I don't keep lizards. But if I had that time and I had that availability, I would keep shinglebacks, a water monitor certainly again. I don't know if I'd even like shinglebacks, but I think they're super cool. And beaded or Gila, I think both of those are awesome animals. So let me see what else we have for questions. There's a lot of questions there. They're making fun of my gray beard now and my no hair. because the picture I posted, I had hair and I had a black beard. But I got older. Kevin's playing some beautiful music.
It's one of my songs.
And I got one last question here is, can you ask how his red-tail green rat snake project is going?
I had a very sad tragedy while I was gone. My albino red-tailed rat snake ate a mouse, just frosted mouse, threw it up and died. And I don't know what happened. And yeah, that broke, that's like one of those heartbreaking things. I was gone when it happened. And that just brutalized, that was like, shit, that animal was awesome. But it is wild caught, so I don't really know what to say. I'd gone through some worming and stuff like that. And yeah, it's gone. But I'm close to hatching albino mangrove snakes, so I can probably...
That's pretty cool.
Probably say, so that's... I mean, being, doing this and also starting like new morphs. Like we're in a room full of all sorts of different morphs that I'm responsible for creating or whatever. And you can do all sorts of successful things, but you also get humbled when things fail. And that was my dream animal, and I've lost that dream animal, and I don't think it was anything that I did wrong, but it happens, and you know all about it.
Yeah. Well, I have one last question here, and this is to both of us, is if you could only keep one animal, this is a hard question, but if you could only keep one animal, what would it be? I don't know if we can answer it. Snarfles, all right. Sadly, the one animal that immediately came to mind died on me yesterday. So I would have to say Goldie. If I could only keep one animal.
Would your kid name it?
No, my guy's named it actually. Goldie. She is a super hypo, super Mayan, JERT positive blood. And she is absolutely beautiful, and she slugged out on me for the 3rd year in a row, but I would still keep her because I think she is just exactly what I was trying to make. And after years of trying to make it, she's just the perfect temperament. She's incredible. She's beautiful. I don't care if she ever breeds. I've been offered a lot of money for her, and I will not sell her.
Mayan? Is that Mayan?
That's Mayan.
There's those
the Kevin McCurley, yeah. This actually started with Kevin's boas, and ironically, years ago, Kevin said, I wasn't going to take the boas so Kevin was kind of moving some things around. And he said, no, do you want these boas? And I said, I don't know. They're just kind of some average looking boas. They're pretty, but they're just, and he says, no, you want these. And
they're special.
And I've bred it and tried to perfect it and picked out the unique ones and kept breeding, and then something amazing happened and came out of it. So that is the animal I would keep.
I raised those from little babies. I raised them up and then bred them, and I made some weird stuff. And then I kind of, I sent everything down to him because we have snakes together down there. So.
Yeah. So that's probably the one animal I would keep if I had to keep all of them. I wouldn't want to get rid of any of them, but that's the second one that pops in my mind. So I think that were all the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you're not subscribed to Kevin's YouTube channel, make sure to check it out. New England Reptile Distributors at YouTube or youtube.com/New England Reptile Distributors. And till next video, let's keep it moving.